right, guys, that car is going to come in. And again, we would clear the entire area. Nobody would be in this area here out on the horn. Everybody would clear out of the shop. Hoist is all set. It's prepped. It's ready to go. Okay. Now this car is a manual transmission, this car is a manual transmission, so you can hear me just kind of easing it back and forth. I've just centered it on the hoist, and I put it on the pad, so now my arms can go under the car. I'm gonna get the VIN number. I've got to pull the release, so the windows always roll down in the car, and I pull the release for the hood. Hood is released, windows down, all right. We don't have any problems with this car locking itself automatically. There's no power locks on it. Everything on this car is all manual, all right. So manual transmission, wind up windows. I mean, I don't know when the last time is. You guys might have seen that, right? Maybe, well, yeah, most of you have probably seen wind up windows in cars. Most cars today have power windows, right? This one, it's completely manual. I think it's a 2000, I believe. So it's 20 years old. It's older than you guys. So let's set it up. I'm going to count over, and I think I already told you that. I was going to ask somebody what year the car is, right? So if I count over, I've got the VIN right here, and I count over let's get somebody involved. Sarah, what number or digit will tell us the year of the vehicle? What do we have to count over to?
Is it the 10th digit?
You got it, okay? So 10th digit, all right? 10th digit. So if I count over, I'm pretty sure it's either a 2000 or 2001, but let's count over, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 7. Now, it just so happens that I'm completely wrong, all right? So the 10th digit is a 4, all right? So the 10th digit is a 4, and Laya, what does that make this car? Oh my gosh, this might be too difficult for you. So the 10th digit in the VIN number of this vehicle is a 4. So what year does it make this vehicle?
2004.
You got it, all right? So from 2000 to 2009, those were the only years where you kind of have a break from the alphabet for now, okay? Where the number actually represented the year. 2001, 2, 3, 4, right? Went up to 2009, then we started with the alphabet again, right? So in the 80s, they started with an alphabet. They went through, I don't know, 24, 23 years, okay? Then in the 2000s, from 2000 to 2009, they used numbers, and now we're back in the alphabet. So we've got another 23 years. So we're not using all 26 letters in the alphabet. We're using about 23 of them, all right? There's a couple reasons why we don't use them, and I think I explained them to you guys. You get them confused with numbers, right? So they don't use they don't use O, for instance. So LMNO, they don't use O because you could confuse it with a 0. What was the other one? I think Q. They don't use Q because you could confuse it with, I don't know, either a 6 or I think it was a 9. right? So there's a couple of letters that they don't use because they don't want them to be confused with numbers, all right? Let me set the car up so you can kind of see what's here. And guys, this is difficult for me because I got to move the camera around and try and look and see what you guys are seeing. So there we go. So good. You can see me setting up. So what I'm going to do, and again, we would make reference to the book. And if we got the book, I'm just going to quickly pull the book up. Book's on my desk. (2004) Honda Civic. I just want you guys to see the picture of what it shows in the book. Okay, so here's the book. All right, 2004 Honda Civic. And again, just kind of fire through the book. So you've got Honda right here. All right, and we're going to look down Civic. Look at that. It says 1995 to 2000. Okay, and then Civic from. Let's just keep. I gotta keep going down because I want to find this one because it only goes up to 2000. So it says Civic, 1995 to 2. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's not 2000. That's 1995 to 2020. Okay, so from 1995 to 2020. All right, Civic's H01, and it's going to be on page 37. Let's just quickly go there, and you just see this real quick. All right, so here we go. H01. Okay. So you've got H01, and if I'm not mistaken, okay, H01 right here, H01, and look at this, and look at all of the models, all right? And again, very similar to what we saw for the Volkswagen, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. All of these areas here, where you see the dark gray, these are all areas, this part of subframe here. You've also got frame rails that run along here. And this is part of the rear subframe in the back here. So all of these dark gray areas, you can safely put either a jack stand or a jack on and can lift the vehicle, okay? But the manufacturer's recommended lift points are these 4 lift points here. Let me set it up. And once I set it up, I've got a light set up over there and I'm gonna shine the light and you guys will see how Honda does it. And Honda is just, they all do it. They do it the same way, okay? They've got these little pieces of metal that kind of stick out. So if you guys are looking at this picture here, Acura, Honda, they're the same car, right? They just give it a different name, all right? So an Acura is kind of like an Audi to a Volkswagen. That's kind of like what Audi is. Audi is like a higher class Volkswagen. Acura is like a higher class Honda, okay? Infiniti is a higher class Nissan, and Lexus is a higher class Toyota, okay? So there we go, we found it, we're gonna do it. So I wanna set this up. And for me, it's easy because I know where these things are. So I know exactly where they are. Look at them just by kind of sticking my head underneath there. And all I have to do is make sure that this pad here will touch them. That was done. That one's done there. So I've got the 2. I'll do the other side and we'll get this car up in the air. All right, so we've got this all set up, okay? I've got my two arms here. I've got the other 2 arms set up over there. Now, what's gonna make this a little bit difficult is this car is really badly rusty. So it's got rust everywhere. There's holes in the bottom of this car, and I'll show you. So one of the reasons I'm putting this car up in the air is I'm gonna show you when you have an older car. So it's a 2004, 16 years old. It's got almost 300,000 kilometers on it. There's quite a bit of rust. He knows there's a bit of rust. Well, he knows there's a lot of rust. I've shown him everything. It's a small, light little car. It gets him from A to B. It's just the car that he uses to get to work. He putters around in it. They've got they just bought a brand new CRV because their Honda Odyssey, which was a 2002, that that was even more rusted than this. And what I told him was, I said, if you're gonna get rid of one of the vehicles because they're both badly rusted, I suggest you get rid of the Odyssey, because the Odyssey is bigger and it's heavier, and it had rust spots and very, not necessarily dangerous spots, but where it was rusted would lead to a spot that was it was an integral part of the frame of the vehicle, which starts to get dangerous, okay? So let's put the scarf in the air, and I'm gonna show you where Honda has like a little piece of metal that sticks out off the drip rail, and that's where you can safely put your lift arm, all right? Let's get it up. Now, what I've done, I've got it up in the air, and the tires are now off the ground. Once the tires are off the ground, I usually stop right here. And what I do is I open up the hood, okay? Because what you want to do is you want to get under the hood, and you want to just undo or remove the oil filler cap, okay? So the first thing that you've got to do is when you're getting under the hood is you want to locate the oil filler cap, and you just want to take it off, okay? Sometimes what that does is allows the crankcase to breathe, and it allows the oil to come out a little easier. Most times it doesn't really make much of a difference, but sometimes it does. So you always want to take off the oil filler cap, okay? You know what I forgot to show you guys? I didn't even think about this. I forgot to show you guys how you open the hood of a vehicle, okay? So what we did earlier was we used the hood release, and I showed you guys that yesterday on the Porsche, okay? And you've always got some sort of little cable that you've got to pull. We call it a hood release. So on most cars, it's in the front under the dash area. You just pull that release, and what it does is it just releases the hood. It doesn't open the hood. So if I do this, the hood is still latched. Okay, so the hood is still latched, and that, again, that's a security latch. So we can pull the release, and the hood can now be opened. It's still latched, all right? So now what we have to do is we've got to kind of stick our hands in underneath here and try and find out where the latch mechanism is. And on these cars here, there's a little mechanism that you just kind of push up with your finger, and what it does is it releases the latch, okay? I'm going to show you what we do, and I'm going to show you how it releases the latch. Okay, so down at the bottom here, I've got a latch mechanism. Let's see if you guys can see it. Let me bring the car up and you can see it. So you've got your latch mechanism there in focus, all right? And I'll show you exactly how it works. When the hood is down, there's a little okay, so on this hood here, I've got a little mechanism. I'm going to shine a light. So on this hood here, with the light showing, okay, you can see the little latch right here. Okay, so this is the latch down here, and this is kind of like, oh, geez, there's a name for it, I forget what it's called. But it's part of the locking mechanism, okay? So you've got this piece of wire or metal that you're seeing right here. Okay? It's kind of like in the shape of a hook. And what that does is it latches onto this down here, okay? So that little hook goes into our mechanism right here, all right? So our little mechanism right here is what latches it. So can you guys see this little hook here? you can see the little hook right here, and that little hook goes into that little rod. Now, when I do this with the release mechanism, it pulls this out of the rod, okay? So I'm gonna open this up. My little rod just kind of sits right here. Little rod kind of sits right here, okay? And this doesn't allow the hood to be released, but if I do this, okay? So the little rod just kind of sits right here, and when we do this, it releases it. That one's too big. So we got the rod that's sitting here on the hood, and that's why you can't open it. And then you just kind of take this mechanism and you pull it over, and when you pull it over, it will release it, and then the hood can raise up. Okay, so that's how that mechanism works. Okay, there we go. Now let's take a look under the engine. This one's a little bit different than you can clearly see it's a little bit different than the Toyota. Okay, so there's the entire engine area under the hood. Okay, this one has got the engine going this way. So the engine's going left to right. Okay, engine's going left to right. It's not going front to back. Okay, on the truck, the engine was in the front, and then the transmission was in the back. So it kind of went this way. Okay, on most cars, front-wheel drive cars, most cars are set up where the engine is this way. We call that transverse. So when we're looking at this engine here, I'll just show you. We need to get to this thing. So if we're looking at the engine, we need to find the oil filler cap. And the oil filler cap is generally on top of the valve cover, okay? And again, when we study the engines, they call it a valve cover because it covers the valves. I'm gonna pull an engine apart here, and you guys are gonna see the valves under these engines, and you're gonna understand why they called it a valve cover. So if you're looking here, on the Toyota, we had a yellow handle. On this Civic, we've got an orange handle. Same thing, that handle is part of the dipstick, and when we pull the dipstick out, we can read how much oil is in it, okay? Right beside that dipstick, okay, we've got this thing, okay? And that's my oil filler cap, okay? So let's just take it off, and we're just gonna undo it. And again, just like the truck, put this down. Just like the truck, it tells us what the grade of oil is, 5W20. That's the grade, that's a thickness, okay? And then it also tells you that, yeah, it says, oh, it doesn't tell you the grade as far as the number. It just says engine oil, okay? And then there's a little symbol on it that looks like an oil can, okay? It doesn't tell you the actual, nope, doesn't actually tell you the actual grade, okay? But it tells you the thickness, the viscosity of the engine, okay? So this one needs a 520. What you're gonna notice though, guys, is I'm gonna be putting in not a 520, I'm gonna be putting in a 1030. And the reason why we're putting in 1030 is because this engine, it burns a little bit of oil. The weather is also hot. So what I do is I tell the caretaker to get a little bit heavier oil, and what that does is it burns less oil because it doesn't leak any, and because it's a heavier grade oil, it's giving the engine better protection in the summer, okay? So I know it says 5W20, but we're not gonna use a 520, we're actually gonna use what's called a 10W30, which is a heavier grade oil. But again, it's the winter, it's the summertime, all right? We can afford to use a heavier grade oil. In the winter, he uses a 5W30, okay? But he doesn't go down as low as a 20. All right, 20 on this engine, because it's got so much mileage and it is burning a little bit of oil, we put a little bit heavier grade oil in it, okay? Cap's gonna go over on my car. Car's going up. All right, I just had to turn off my light in my classroom so I could see what I'm showing you. vehicle's going up. Now, one of the things, if you're in the shop, in this particular shop, our ceilings are very low. So what I always tell the students is as the car is going up, yes, you want to make sure the car goes up high enough, but because we've got the hood open, you can see where the hood is and you can see where the lights are just above the hood. So we've always got to be careful to make sure that when the vehicle goes up in the air, the hood doesn't touch the lights. So on this particular car here, we can go all the way up on the hoist and the hood won't touch the light. But you've always got to make sure that nothing from either the roof or the hood or even the latch, the hatch in the back, if you've got it open, you want to make sure that it doesn't touch the lights, okay? It'll crush them. Let's bring the car down. I know we're going to make a little bit of noise, but I'm going to bring the car back down a little bit because it's a little bit too high, all right? If I show you this here, if I walk underneath, the car's set up okay for me to work underneath, but I prefer it just a tiny bit lower, all right? And if I have it down a tiny bit lower, it's easier for me to work on, especially when I set up the oil drain, all right? I'm just gonna bring it down 4 or 5 inches, okay? And again, that's just personal preference. You guys can set it up anywhere you want, all right? I'm just gonna bring it down. Okay, so I brought it down. I brought the car down. I'm ready to do the oil change on it. We've got not a bucket like you saw in the video. We've got an oil drain, and the oil drain has a big bucket on the top, okay, where the oil will go into. It's got basically it's a big funnel, and it goes into a container. I'm going to show you guys this right now. So right now it's a little bit full, and I wanted to show you guys what we do in the shop, because in order for us to dispose of the oil properly, so environmentally safe, okay, this oil doesn't, well, it gets removed from this container when it gets full, and then we put it into another container that's outside the shop, and there's a company that's paid to come by and remove all of the engine oil. And it's not just engine oil, any kind of oil that we drain out of any of these cars. So transmission oil, engine oil, brake fluid, any of that stuff, it just gets poured into the oil drain, okay? And then it gets sucked out and it goes into a large container, and that's outside, and they remove it when they come by. So there's a company called Owl Environmental, and they suck all the oil out of that container and they take care of it properly. Okay, so can you guys see this here? Let me bring this down. I'll show you the oil drain. So this is our oil drain, all right? So the oil drain, it's on wheels. It's got a big funnel on the top, all right? And we drain the oil into this. So on wheels, okay, easy to move around. Got a little handle here. Got your big funnel on the top, all right? And then this goes down the tube. And this is all adjustable. So let me just show you quickly. So this, we've got a little lock on it here, and this can be raised and lowered, okay? So all it is a funnel going into this container, all right? And we can drain the oil that way, okay? So I'm just gonna set it all up so that we can drain the oil. Let me get the camera under the car so you can take a look at what I'm looking at, and you'll see what underneath an old rusty car looks like. So let's get this here. And I'm never concerned about getting underneath old rusty cars because it's all good. If we raise the car up and it doesn't fall off the hoist, it's all good, okay? first things first, let me show you some. Let me show you some of the rust that's on this car. So if we're looking at this vehicle, I got a nice light check. Okay, so we've got some oil leaks, okay? And he's very aware of the oil leaks, all right? So we've got some oil leaks. We got some oil leaks, just very small oil leaks right here. So he's burning a little bit of oil, and now he's starting to leak a little bit of oil because the car is just full. Okay, so he's got some oil leaks here. That's engine oil, that's not transmission oil. Oops, I didn't have the camera up. So he's got an oil leak here, okay? And again, that's engine oil, it's not transmission oil because transmission oil wouldn't get as dark as this, okay? It does get dark, but it doesn't get as dark as that because there's no hydrocarbons getting into it from the engine, okay? Let's take a look now, and let's go to the back of the car. Okay, so we've got here, so let's take a look. Now, there's the vehicle, all of it, okay? So we've got the engine here and the transmission. So we've got the engine oil pan over here. And if you're looking at the engine oil pan, there's a drain plug, okay? We've got transmission here, but there's no oil pan on the transmission because this is a manual, all right? So the manual transmission doesn't have an oil pan as such because it doesn't use a pump. There's no oil pump on it, all right? So they're very small, they're lightweight, and the only place where you can drain it is usually a big drain plug, and it's usually somewhere on the side. And on this particular car here, it's right, and you wouldn't really notice it as a drain plug because it's kind of circular, all right? And it's circular because it's got an Allen key head on it. It's right here. So I've got a nice light shining on it. But come over here, all right? You can see it there, all right? So it's circular, okay? And it's got a square drive on it, and that square drive, so it's not an Allen key, that square drive is actually for a ratchet. So you can put your ratchet end on it and you can turn it, okay? So if you've got a 3/8 ratchet, the square drive on your ratchet will fit in here. Let me just grab a ratchet so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so here we have a ratchet, okay? So we've got this ratchet, and on the ratchet, we've got a square drive, right? So you've got this square drive here on the ratchet, and that square on the ratchet, okay? That square on the ratchet fits into this hole, okay? So it fits into this hole right here, all right? So if you're looking at it, let me get it a little bit higher. I know this is difficult because I've got to move this around. So that little square drive on the ratchet will fit. Okay, so square hole on this. Okay, square drive on the ratchet will fit in. So here's my ratchet. Okay, and then the square drive fits in. So now you can see that ratchet hanging off because the square drive and the ratchet, okay, has fit into the hole. So now you've got the ratchet on there, and that's how we will take that off, okay? Good, so we would just loosen it with the ratchet, okay? All right, we gotta check this out. Bottom of the car. Bottom of the vehicle, okay? Engine, a couple of oil leaks, all right? You can see some of the rust. These are the rails that I was talking about. So you've got these rails here, okay? So you've got these rails right here, guys. Those rails are safe to jack the car up because it's reinforced and it's part of the subframe assembly, okay? So you've got these rigid rails that kind of run down here. You can safely put your jack on there, all right? He's also got, I don't think he had these oil leaks before. Oh boy, he's got another big problem on this car. Um, guys, I didn't see this before. This was not here before. He's got an oil leak on the vehicle, and that oil leak is coming from his brake line. So that's not a good thing. All right. Got a brake line up there. It's leaking oil. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's leaking oil and it's a brake line up in the top there. So that's not good. I'll have to show him. That's bad. That's very bad. Okay. When you've got a brake line leak on a car, you have to have it fixed. And I'm not sure how easily that's going to be able to be fixed because it's in a very, very bad spot. Yeah, he's got a brake line leak. That's not good at all. All right, let's just take a look. Now, he is aware of the other stuff, okay, and I have showed him. All right, so let's just take a look. Let's walk to the back of this car. So, got your frame rail right there. There's your rail, okay? But take a look at this. And he is aware of this. So if we run along this frame rail here, okay, if we run along this frame rail here, that's part of the rigid subframe of the vehicle. Look right here. See this right here? Okay. This is a wrench. I'm going to put it through. Look, there's a massive hole right here. Look. Okay. So there's a big hole in this floor. And so what I'm touching right now, I'm pushing up on the carpet on this floor. And he knows this. I told him this. Okay. On the other side, we've got the same thing. On the other side, we've got another large hole right here. And again, I'm pushing up. I'm pushing up. Okay. I'm pushing up on this carpet. So what I'm pushing up on here, if I get closer, I'll show you guys. Okay. That's his carpet. So that's the bottom of his carpet. All right. So if I'm doing this, you guys can clearly see it. That's his carpet. That's the bottom of his carpet. His car. So all this metal is all missing. And again, he's just keeping the car because you know what, it gets it from A to B. Honestly, I personally would drive this car. I would drive it, but I would never give a car like this ever to my children, right? Because this is a dangerous car to drive. It's not dangerous in the sense that, you know, it's going to stop running, you know, the floor is going to fall out. The rest of the floor is pretty solid. So, yeah, you got a hole right here. You got a hole right here. Not hitting it. The rest of the floor is pretty solid, but you just got these two huge gaping rust holes that are in the bottom of this vehicle. And again, he's aware of it, so he moves. Okay. The rest of it, if we go down to the back, I'll show you something here quickly. And on most new cars, guys, we've got this. Okay. Gas tank. All right. The gas tank on today's vehicles, they're all made out of plastic. Okay. Never going to rust. Made out of plastic. It's lightweight. It can't rust. Okay. The only things that can rust are the straps on the around. But the tank itself, it'll last forever. Okay. Made out of plastic. Let me show you what they do on this Hondas. Where your jack can go, your jack stand can go, or your lift points can go. I just have to move the light around and I'll show you. So let me just move this light. I know we haven't got the door changes yet. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it's 10 o'clock and I can't see the chat. Okay, guys, it's 10 o'clock. I know I'm going so super slow. This is ridiculous. It's 10 o'clock. Let's just go for a quick half an hour break. It's 10:03. You guys get up, stretch your legs, go have something to eat if you haven't had breakfast as yet. And at 10:30, I'll come back and I'll just set up a little bit better with the lighting and stuff. So come back at 10:30. I don't see any questions here in the chat, so I guess you guys are all just kind of watching. I have to pause the recording, and when we come back, I'll restart the recording, okay? So I'll see you guys at 10:30. Oh, and any questions, just ask, throw it up in the chat, guys, okay? Okay, I'm back. I've got the video camera all set up here now just to show you the lift points on this Honda. Again, the car's old, it's quite rusty, but the lift points are still clearly visible. And what I've done is I've put this jack stand here. I put this jack stand here. It's a very long one to support the weight of the vehicle. And then I'm going to slide the arm out so that you can see it clearly. Okay, because my lift point is just above here. And you'll see it, even though it's rusty, you're still going to see it. You're going to see that little tiny lip coming down. All right. And it's a reinforced piece of metal, okay, that's welded to the lip of our rocker. So let me just take this up. Just going to take this up. And I'm going to show you something that I use. And again, it's a little trick that I use only because I've worked on many old cars before. Okay, so let's just raise this up. So I've now supported the weight of the vehicle with this. And now I can slide this down. So the car's perfectly fine. I'm safe under here. Okay. So right now I've got this jack stand just supporting the weight. Okay. So let's take a look. I'm going to show it to you. Yeah, you can clearly see it in the video, and I'm going to point it out, but you guys will also be able to see it. I know it's not that distinguishable because it all looks rusty. If you're looking at it, you're thinking, okay, it's all rusty. But let me just show you. So right here, guys, okay, this is the lip for your rocker panel, and it runs along the bottom of the car. And then all of the Hondas have a little additional piece of metal right here. And it's just kind of welded on, and it usually sticks out down below. Now it's a little bit old and it's a little bit crushed up, but that's it right there, all right? So if you're looking at the back and you're looking at the front of a Honda, you're just looking for this little extension of metal, and it just kind of comes off the lip, okay? And this little piece of metal here, it's welded in. It's welded onto this. It's welded onto the front here, okay? And that will give you the rigidity and the support so that you can raise the car up, okay? So that's it right there. All Hondas have them. All you have to do is kind of peek under the car. And if you peek under the car, you can see it from the outside. It's even more visible from the outside. Maybe I should show you a shot of that. Let's see, I could probably, you can see it. You can see the little reinforced lip here, and that's where you can safely jack up the car, put a jack stand, or put your lift pad. So I'm going to slide this back under, okay? And there's my lift pad, and I'm just going to, and let me just show you what I'm using here. So you guys, what's he got on the top of that? So what I do on these older cars, okay, if it's a new car, it doesn't really matter. If the lip is not badly rusted, okay? But what I do on the older cars, I use a hockey puck, okay? And the hockey puck, what it does is it prevents me from crushing this, because if I put just the metal on it, sometimes it'll crush this because it's so badly rusted. So I just use a hockey puck, okay? It's a Canadian Tire hockey puck. I just kind of put it on here on the surface, all right? So that it kind of protects the metal. We do that with our jacks too, because our jacks have got a big, large metal jacking plate, and I put a hockey puck on it. I just ran over to the jack, and I thought I could pull off the plate to show you, but it's just a metal plate on the jack, and like I said, I put a hockey puck on it just to protect the vehicles as we're jacking it up. Okay. So that was what I wanted to show you, where you put your lift pads, okay, your jack or your jack stands to raise a Honda. Let's get this oil change done. Okay, I'm going to move this camera again, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing. We've got a nice bright light here. I'm going to set it up so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so in order for us to change the oil, we have to locate the drain pan and the drain pan bolt. Okay, So we've located the drain pan and the drain pan bolt. All drain pan is right here. All bolt is right here. So what have we got to do? We just got to loosen it. It's a 17 millimeter, so I've got a 17 millimeter wrench, right? And we're just going to loosen it. Now, when you've got a drain pan bolt that's so rusted, if it gives you any trouble at all taking it off with the wrench, we're using a wrench that's got a 12 point, okay? So that's a double hex or a 12 point on here. If it gives us any trouble at all, what we're gonna do is exactly what Chris fixed it. And we're gonna put a big breaker bar on it along with a 6-point socket. So let me see if I can break it. And we do all the oil changes on this car all the time. Okay, so that's free. Okay, so I've just broken it free. I haven't broken it physically, I've broken it free. So now the torque, I can spin it by hand. Okay, that's what I mean when I say break it. So I've broken it free. And I'm going to set up my oil drain. So once I bring it up, you'll see the oil drain. So I'm going to set the oil drain up, bringing it up, and I'm bringing it up as close as possible. Okay, so what I've done is I brought this funnel up as high as possible, as close as possible to this drain hole. And what that does is it prevents any of this stuff from spilling out. Okay, so now all I have to do is pull that drain plug out, and I'm going to show you a little trick. Okay, hard for me to explain it in a video, but watch what happens when I do what I do. I won't get much oil on my fingers because I'm going to pull, when I get to the last thread on that drain plug, I'm just going to pull it out. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out, and I can spin this by hand. And look what I've just done. And I don't need a rag. Okay, okay, I don't need a rag. My hands aren't dirty because what I did was I pulled the drain plug out as it got to the end. I just pulled it out super quick, and your hands don't need to get dirty. Okay, you can hear that all draining into the drain pan, and I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to bring it down so you guys can see. Okay, so if you guys are looking at it, the color of that oil is pretty black. All right, and he does change the oil on a regular basis. Problem is, guys, when your engine starts to get a lot of mileage and it's burning a little bit of oil, okay, what that means is the oil is getting into the combustion chamber. But what that also means is that the combustion from the combustion gases from the power stroke in your engine, that means the gases from your power stroke are actually getting into your oil also. So not only do you have oil going up into the combustion chamber, you've got gases going down into the oil, and that's what causes this oil to get that black. All right, so now we're just going to drain the oil, and we're going to continue to drain the oil until it just starts to drip out, because we want to try and get as much oil out of this vehicle as possible so that you can get as much new oil into the car. So we're just going to let it drain, and I'm going to show you where the oil filter is. Now, for me to get the camera at the right angle for this might be a little bit difficult, okay? But let me just kind of quickly show you. So you've got your oil pan, okay? And your oil pan, okay, is on the bottom of the engine. On this particular car here, and on a lot of the older Hondas, okay, the oil filter is, I'm gonna do this. Let's see what I can do. The oil filter is, can we see it? I'm gonna try and shine a light. So it's kind of tucked away, it's kind of hidden, okay? But it's very, very common on these older Hondas, all right? So you've got your drive shaft. This is this long shaft right here. And let me see if you can even see it. It's gonna be orange because we always change it with the Fram filter. And let's see if we can get a good picture of it here. There we go. Okay, so if you're looking up on the side of this engine, okay, you can see the oil filter. So the oil filter is right there. It's that orange filter. There we go. There's the oil filter right there. It's that orange filter, okay? And what we have to do is remove it, okay? So I'll show you the old filter when we take it out, and I'm gonna show you the new filter and how we put it in, okay? So I'm gonna take that filter out. You can see it there. It's the orange with, it's got a black, it's kind of got like a black ring on the end of it, okay? Is that better? Yeah, there you go. That's a better view of it. So you can see the orange oil filter with that black ring. And what the manufacturer does is they put that black ring on it so your hands can grab it, okay? So it's there for grip. That's what it's there for. All right, so we're just gonna let the oil drain out. Oil is draining out, and I'm gonna take out the oil filter. And when I take the oil filter out, because it's right above here, okay, you're gonna see some oil come down. And again, I'm not gonna get my hands too dirty because the oil filter it's on an angle like this. So the oil won't drip onto my hand, it's gonna drip down this way, all right? So let me just take this oil filter out. And I'll show you the oil filter when it comes out. So you're gonna see some oil. So that oil is coming out of the oil filter right now, okay? So that oil is coming out of the oil filter. I'm just gonna bring this up. Very normal, all right? So I let the oil kind of drip out of the oil filter. And let me take it right out. Okay, so here we have the oil filter. I've removed the oil filter. I'm gonna let it drain in the bucket for a little bit. And I'm gonna bring this down so that you guys can see it. So I'm gonna bring this down. And right now the oil is literally just dripping into the bucket. So I've got my camera here, okay? The oil is dripping into the bucket. It's kind of dark, so let's get some light on here. All right, so I've got my oil filter here. There's my oil filter. So we've got the oil filter to Fram, and like I said, they've got this black. I'm gonna have to put it on this side so you can see so the light can shine on it. So they've got this black line on the edge of it, and that black line is basically just it's paint, okay? It's a painted surface. They just kind of painted on the edge of it here. And that paint, it's got like, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got like a very rough finish. And with that rough finish, it allows us to grip the oil filter so that we can take it on and we can put it on. Or sorry, we can take it off and we can put it on. Now, you can clearly see that oil is very dark. What do we have to do with this? We have to do exactly what we saw in the Chris Fix video, which is get the new oil filter, and we've got to coat this surface here. So let's get the new oil filter. All right, so here we have the new oil filter. Okay, so we've got the new oil filter, we've got the new oil. And what I told you guys was, we're not gonna use, on the cap it says 5W20. We're not gonna use a 5W20 grade oil, all right? What we're gonna use is a 10W30. And the reason that we're gonna use a 10W30, it's a little bit heavier grade oil, all right? Those numbers all mean something. Again, we're going to cover it when we cover the engines, which is next section, all right? So those numbers all mean something. And by using a heavier grade oil, it helps this engine to burn less, especially in the summer months. So because the summer's here, weather's gotten warm outside, okay? Instead of using a 5W20, we're going to use a 10W30. And again, I'm not wearing any gloves, and if you're looking at my hands, I didn't get them dirty at all because, again, I've done this a very long time. And we can do an oil change with that without making too much difference. So here's my Fram oil filter, okay? And then when we pull it out, okay, on the box and on the filter, okay? So we've got instructions on the box. Let's see if I'm holding it. Yep. Okay. So we've got installation instructions on the box right here. Okay, 2 different steps. But also on the filter, you've got steps right here too. So it actually tells you what to do on the filter, all right? And the first thing it tells you to do is you just want to lubricate this surface here, okay? What that does is it helps to seal it, but not only does it help to seal it, okay, it also helps to remove it, okay? So putting it on dry, it'll go on and it'll seal it and it won't leak. But trying to take it off when you put this on with a dry gasket, okay, it's a rubber gasket, it's usually very difficult to remove it. So I'm just going to show you what I do, all right? So they tell you to just kind of lubricate it, and he did that with his hand, right? I just do this. I take the old oil filter. Here's the old oil filter, and watch what I do. I just do this. I take the new filter. I just do this. Done. And once I do that, my gaskets match, and look at that. It's nicely lubricated. I didn't even get my hands dirty, okay? I just took the old oil filter with the oil that's already, the existing oil that's here. I just did one of these, and that's it. Or you can do it the other way, but oil will come out, right? So you just kind of do that, okay? And now you've got your gasket, your rubber gasket here. It's all lubed, okay? Next step is to install it on the car. I'm going to install it right now. So let's put it back in. Now, I can't show you what's going on here, okay? So I've got it going back on. And you can hear and you can see that the oil is only dripping out now, okay? We have taken out as much oil as possible out of this car, and it's only dripping very, very slowly, okay? No need for me to keep draining this oil. It's just a very slow drip. Most of the oil has come out. And because most of the oil has come out, we're now going to reinstall our drain plug bolt, okay? So I'm going to give this area here a wipe because oil always comes down, okay? And I'm going to take this. I'm just going to show you guys the gasket, okay? Because we saw that in the crucifix. All right, so in the crucifix video, he showed you this gasket, right? And his gasket was quite worn, all right? If you're looking at this gasket here, this gasket is good. Why? We just replaced it the other day, okay? So the last time he came in for an oil change, we replaced this gasket. Let me show you this gasket, okay? So there's a gasket there, and the gasket looks pretty good, all right? So we don't have to worry about this crush washer or gasket, if you want to call it that. Just going to slip it back on. We're going to reuse it. This one is made out of aluminum. Let me just give it a wipe. Okay, so this one is an aluminum crush gasket, and you can tell by the color, right? If it was copper, it'd be a copper color, whereas this one is like a silver color. All right, just going to install it back on here. There we go. We're going to tighten it up. All change almost done. We've got most of the steps done under the car. And then what do? I'm going to snug it up. You should use a torque wrench on it because there's a torque specification for everything. But what I normally tell students, you do the oil change, you tighten it as tight as you can, all right? And I'm going to come and I'm going to double check. Why is it that I'm always double checking what you're doing? Not because I don't trust you, but I can't trust you, all right? The only person that has a license in the shop is me, and when we're working on live cars, we want to make sure that the car leaves, okay, just as safe as when it came in, okay? So we just tighten it up, and I just know what it feels like when the gasket is crushed, and I always use just a wrench, okay? I just always use a normal length wrench, and with that wrench, I get very good feel, okay? So that's done. All right, so I've wiped up where it's going to drip. I've wiped up this area here where the oil usually comes down, where it drips off of. Okay, I'm going to wipe it up again. That's when we change the filter. When we change the filter, the oil tends to kind of run down this area here. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah, the oil tends to run down. There's an area here. Get the light shine on it. and the oil tends to run down. You can't really see it, but the oil tends to run down this area here, and then it drips off right here, and it drips down. So you can see I've wiped it up. There's no oil left on there. I've wiped it up here, okay? And the oil change as far as what has to be done underneath is completed. Roll this out of my way. Now, what we have to do, and again, this all has to do with keeping things safe, environmentally safe. The oil filter is left to drain for 24 hours. All right, so we leave the oil filter drain, and we let it drain for 24 hours. And then once we finish draining for 24 hours, we can put it into another container. Then we have another company that comes by and they take those containers and they dispose of them properly. So I've got my oil bucket over here, okay? And inside the top there, we're just gonna leave the oil filter. So that oil filter is gonna be drained, right? Oil filter is gonna get drained for 24 hours. We're just gonna leave it in there, let it drain, okay? All right. Let's bring the car down. So I've shown you how to change the oil on the bottom, how to locate all the parts on the bottom. Okay, we're going to bring the car down now, and I'm going to show you how to refill the oil. All right, so let's take care of that. Okay, let's bring the car down. Guys, you don't know how much I miss the noise. I miss the chatter. I miss the kids fooling around in the shop. I miss the laughter. Miss you guys calling each other names. Oh. All right, let's do this. Okay, so can you guys see the whole engine? Let's see if you can see the whole engine here. Nope, let's get a little bit closer. Okay, so now you can see the whole engine, and hopefully you'll be able to see me adding oil to this. Okay, so we've removed the filler. We've removed the filler cap from here, all right? So all we have to do now is install a funnel, right? So we're gonna install a funnel, and we're gonna fill up our oil. Now you have to remember, guys, please remember that you are not using all 5 liters in this container. Okay. This container of oil, okay, it holds 5 liters, okay? So 5 liters of oil is way too much for this engine. This engine will maybe hold 3.5 liters of oil, all right? So we've got to make sure that we do not add extra oil to this engine. We want to add about 3 liters first. After we add 3 liters, I'm going to walk you into the car. I did not fill up the oil filter with oil, all right? So it's going to take a split second for that oil light to go out, okay? And then once we're done that, we're going to come back out to the car and we're going to use our dipstick to check the level of oil in the engine, okay? I've got my trusty funnel. It's in my oil fill hole. we're gonna start adding oil. Now, yesterday on Chris Fix, you saw a quick little tip. Now, I haven't broken the sealers yet, so the seal is still on this, okay? So you've still got your foil sealed, so I haven't broken it. But when you guys are pouring oil in, when you pour it this way, I'm gonna pour it this way just so that you guys can see. It doesn't come out smooth. But if you hold it this way, so if you hold it sideways, it'll come out a lot more smooth, okay? And the only reason that it comes out smoother is simply because of the way that the container's held. It allows air to get in, it's all physics, okay? And with the air getting into the container, the oil comes out freer, that's all, okay? All right, so let me just show you. If we add oil this way, not sure if you can see it, but let's try. If we're trying to add the oil this way, you see how it's kind of lumpy coming out? You can kind of hear it, right? Right, it comes out like kind of lumpy. So what we do is we turn the container sideways, and now it comes out nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add about 3 liters of oil. And you can clearly see the difference between the oil that came out and the oil that's going in. That oil is nice and clean. And what I should have done is I should have put some of the oil on my fingers so you guys could see it. So now I'm looking on the back where it's graduated. All right. And you've got your graduations in the back. And it only says that I've used 2.5. Okay. Because we've gone from 5 down to 2.5. So I want to put in about another ½ liter. ½ liter once I fill this funnel up. That's about ½ liter right there. Okay. So again, I'm looking at my graduations. It says 5. I guess probably another funnel. There we go. We probably added 3 liters of engine oil to this. So I've added 3 liters of engine oil to this engine. The engine probably holds roughly 3.5, including the oil filter. So let me give you guys another little tip. You have three new quizzes in your lecture class, and I need you guys to get those done. So a couple of you have already done. Thank you very much. But I was shocked. I believe only one person received 100% on both quizzes. All right. I'm not going to mention who got it, but sorry about that. Only one person got 100% on those quizzes, and I was quite surprised. So one of the things that you have to remember is when you're filling the engine oil, there's 2 separate capacities that you're going to see when you're looking at specification. The first one will tell you an oil change without the oil filter. And then the second one will tell you the oil change with the oil filter, okay? So when you're looking at the oil capacity with an oil filter, it's always going to be more, because don't forget, the oil filter is going to hold a little bit of oil. And so my capacity is always going to be higher. So one of the questions, I can tell you this right now, one of the questions says, when do you use more engine oil when you're doing an oil change, okay? So remember that when you're adding an oil filter, okay, the oil filter always uses a little extra oil, all right? So when you're doing an engine oil change with filter and oil, when you're using the filter, you always have a little bit of additional oil that must be added because the filter has to be filled with oil. And it's usually about, with the smaller filters today, it's usually about 0.2, 0.3 of a liter, okay? So not quite ½ liter, okay, and definitely not a liter. Another trick, another little trick I can show you is you've always got to pull these funnels out. And when you pull these funnels out, it's going to drip oil, okay? So when you pull the funnel out, the funnel's going to drip oil because there's still oil left in there. So what I do is I just do this. I pull the funnel out and I quickly put it into the oil container. And now there's no oil that's dripped onto the engine, okay? If you've got oil dripping onto the engine and the engine oil drips onto the exhaust manifold, which is down here, it'll smoke and it'll smell bad, okay? And you're not gonna like it for at least a day or two until it all burns off. So I put the cap back on, and now I've got to set up the camera so that we can look on the inside. And I want you guys to see the dash, all right? So we're gonna be looking at the dash on this car, and we're gonna check to see where the oil light is. When we go inside and we check to see where the oil light is, all right, we're gonna turn on our ignition, and then when we start the car, you're gonna notice that the oil light doesn't go off right away, all right? Let me set this up. All right, so I'm getting into the car, and I've got a hold. I'm just gonna hold this dash cam. All right, so let's get into the car. All right, so into this car, and I am literally gonna hold this dash cam up right in front of the dash, so you can see. All right, so we're getting into the car. Okay. All right, so we are now looking at the dash on the car. Close the door, hear this beep all the time. Sorry about that. Okay, let's take a look. So we're looking at the dash of this vehicle, okay? And I'm gonna turn on the ignition. And when I turn on just the ignition, I'm not going to start the car. You can't anyhow. This is a manual, okay? So in a manual car, you got to sink the clutch in order to start the vehicle. So I can't go wrong. All right. So let's take a look at the dash and let's turn on the dash. So I'm going to turn the ignition. I'm going to turn it to position number 2 on my key. So position 1 allows me to maybe turn the radio on. Let's see. Nope. Position 1. Yep, my radio's on. Let's see. Radio's on. So position number 1 on your key usually allows you to turn on some accessories, generally the radio. Next one is position number 2. And when we turn it to position number 2, look, all our lights come on. Okay. So now we've got all these crazy lights on the dash. All right. And these are all the lights that are incredibly important for safety. Okay, so turn it back off. Some of them have already gone off, but let's take a look. Let's document all of the lights. All right, you ready? Here we go. Boom. Let's start on this side. You've got your brake light. Okay, looks like a little brake. Okay. DRL means daytime running lights. You've got a maintenance required light that has to just do with maintenance. That's a Honda thing, and every manufacturer is different. Okay, and then when we go over here, okay, we've got this strange little red light that looks like a battery. Okay, and then above it, we've got another strange little red light that looks like, ooh, that oil container dripping oil. Okay, so we've got that red light that looks like a battery, and that red light is for your alternator. So if your alternator stops charging, if there's an issue with your alternator, not your battery, that light will come on. But let me just turn the ignition back off again, turn it back on. The little yellow light just went off. Okay. So if you look at that little yellow light that's there in between the 2 red ones, that's your check engine light, okay? It's on right now, but watch. It will go off because what that means is the computer's read everything and the computer doesn't see any issues, so it's gonna shut it down, all right? So normally after you leave the car on for, I don't know, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on the manufacturer, that light will go off, okay? If the light is on, means you've got a problem, and the light will illuminate on the dash to say, hey, something's wrong, let's get it fixed, okay? So now, we don't have to worry too much about the red light. That will turn off by itself. We have to worry about the red battery light, okay? We have to worry about that oil light. So what I usually tell students to do is when after they've done it, they jump in the car, and I watch as they turn on the ignition, and I say, okay, take a look and find your oil light. So now that they found the oil light, we can start the car. And we have to make sure that the oil light goes off. So let's start the car. So if you guys want to go back and look at what you would have noticed is that once I started the car, the oil light went off, okay? And once the oil light went off, it kind of flashed for a minute. And the reason why it flashed was because the oil filter was quite full of oil and sweat. Okay? You can see that it's back on again. But if I was to crank the engine over and produce any sort of oil pressure, okay, it'll just go instantly. Brake lights are still on. That simply means that something is wrong with the brakes. As it's red, okay, that's a problem. Again, when we're looking at the dash, the yellow lights, they're just being cautious. If you have a red light come on your dash, guys, you want to make sure to fix the problem so that red light goes off. So if you've got your red battery light on, pull over, get off the road, just pull over, all right? Kind of make sure everything is okay, or try and get to the garage, because really, you're driving around at night with the headlights on and maybe it's raining, you've got 10 minutes before the battery goes dead, okay? You're driving along in the daytime with maybe your daytime running lights on and nothing else on, maybe you've got the radio, you've got maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour to get someplace before your battery says, I've got no more power, I'm gonna shut the car off, okay? The oil light, if the oil light comes on, what I always say is just pull over, keep the car running. And if the car doesn't make any noise, it could just be an electrical problem. But the first thing you want to do is pull the car over, open your hood, and check your oil level, okay? By checking the oil level, if the oil level is okay, it could be an electrical problem, could definitely be an oil pressure problem. But if your oil level is non-existent, so you pull the dipstick out and there's nothing on the oil, on the dipstick, you need oil, okay? So that red light, guys, is not an indicator of oil level, it's an indicator of oil pressure, okay? This red light, it's gonna stay on. He thought it had to do with his handbrake, all right? So when you're pulling up on the handbrake, right here, when you pull up on the handbrake on a vehicle, it'll turn that light on, all right? So I've got my handbrake right here, and if you pull up on the lever, it'll turn the light on, all right? He told me this morning, he says, you know what? Every now and again, my light comes on. I think my handbrake is a little bit loose. I said, I'll take a look at it. Guys, he's got a brake fluid leak. And the reason that the light is on is because the fluid level in his master cylinder has gone down. And that's going to cause that light to turn off. That light will never turn back off unless he adds fluid to the master cylinder reservoir, all right? So he's got a brake fluid leak, and I must tell him that's something that I have to do, all right? It must be recorded. He must know that he has a brake fluid leak because that is incredibly dangerous. I know what he's gonna do. He's gonna take it back. He's got a small shop that he normally goes to, and they do good work on those kinds of jobs because I don't touch any brake lines here, right? The car is incredibly rusty. So I'm going to tell him he's got a brake fluid leak. I'm going to add some fluid to his reservoir. The oil light's going to go out. His brakes are still going to be kind of okay. And he's going to take it to the shop where he gets that line fixed. Because if the line doesn't get fixed, okay, something bad's going to happen. All right. If we lose the fluid in our brake system, guys, the brakes don't work. That's a problem. Okay, so we've checked everything inside the car, then everything outside. Let's get somebody involved, okay? Ryan, what do I have to do now? I just told you what I have to do. What do I have to do now? I've got to go back and check something. What do I have to check? Ryan is maybe not with us. Okay, don't worry. Who else do I have? Devin, what do I have to do now? So Devin, what's the next step? What do I have to do?
You have to check the oil level by the dipstick.
Exactly, guys. We're going back. I added 3 liters of engine oil. We're going to go back and we're going to check the oil level, okay? Let me go back. All right, so once you do this, I go back now. I've got to check the oil. So let's do it. So I've shown all of you guys where the dipstick is, all right? I would have to check the soil level, and let's do it together. So, oh, my rag is right here. All right, so what do when you're checking the dipstick? Oh, this is part of the test that Cindy led to. So I didn't get Ryan to, I've already asked Sarah, I've already asked Lenny, I asked Laya, I just asked Ryan. Let's get Hansa. Hansa, what do we have to do when we remove the dipstick?
Wait, sorry, what? I didn't hear the question.
What do we have to do when we remove the dipstick? So when I pull that dipstick out, what do I have to do? I gotta do something when I remove the dipsticks. You ready? So look, I'm sure.
I put it in the chat because there's just a bunch of noise at my house right now.
Oh, okay. So we want to check the level. Nope, not right now. What do we want to do when we remove that dipstick? Because, oh, this is on the quiz. So let's do it. We're going to remove it. And you said check the level. But I don't want to check the level. Right? What do I want to do? And I've got it ready here. Carton, tell her what we got to do. So what do we got to do when we first remove this dipstick? So I pull the dipstick out, you can see it there. What do I got to do? Carton's gone. I don't know. David Lamb, what do I got to do?
Wait, what'd you do with the dipstick? You gotta wipe it.
Good. All right. So if you're looking at this dipstick right now, I've got oil.
Yeah,
I've got oil right up to here. Okay.
yeah.
The reason I have oil right up to here is because when the engine is running, it literally just takes the oil and it splashes around. So it splashes all over the dipstick. And if I'm looking at the dipstick right now, look where my oil level is. Okay, sorry. Okay. My oil level is all the way up to here where my markers are down here. So when we pull that dipstick out, you got to give it a wipe. Okay. So give it a wipe with a nice, doesn't have to be clean. Just give it a wipe. So now we can check our levels. So we got a level from here, we got a level to here. All right. So what we got to do now is we got to check our oil levels. So let me just, good. So if you guys are looking, you see the two markers right here, 1, 2. Okay, that's minimum low. Okay, this one right here, minimum low, and this one right here, maximum. All right. Now we use. I know in the video it said, oh, let the car sit for about 5-10 minutes. Yeah, you can. We've said it sit for about 2 or 3 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my dipstick back in. And if the level is not still messed up, not way too high, we're going to take it. So let's pull it back out. Okay, and let's take a look at our level. Okay, so let's take a look at the level, and you guys can see where the level is now, right? So the level is right about here. So it's just a little tiny bit below the maximum. So let's ask Casper. Casper, between this line here, the bottom, the minimum, and the maximum, how many liters do we normally hold? So between the minimum and maximum markings on most oil dipsticks, how many liters does that represent?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, that's fine. So let's see if Ryan is with us. I don't know if Ryan's with us. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Ryan, you with us? Okay, what about William? William, from here to here, from the minimum mark to the maximum mark, how many liters of oil do we usually hold? And that's for most.
He put it in the chat.
Ah, good. Okay, so Ryan says 2 liters. No, we're getting closer though. Okay, go ahead, William. So how many liters from minimum to maximum, these 2 markers, how many liters is that usually? No, not 4. 4 is the maximum capacity for an engine like this. This engine capacity is about anywhere between 3 and 3.5 liters. Okay, so 4 liters would be the entire capacity for the whole engine, all right? So let me just tell you guys, what about maybe Moyana? Moyana, do you know? 'Cause I haven't gotten you involved. It's not four, it's not
No.
two, it's. She's gone, I don't know. All right, probably Alexander can tell us. Alexander, talk to me. Between here, minimum and maximum, how many liters does that usually represent? And I know I showed you the Porsche yesterday. Porsche was different.
1.5.
Okay, we're getting there, okay? So guys, normally between the minimum and the maximum markers, it's usually 1 liter of oil, okay? So it usually represents a quarter of the crankcase capacity, because if most engines hold about 4 to 5 liters, depending on the size of the engine, okay? So from minimum to maximum on most dipsticks, it represents 1 liter of oil, which is a quarter of your capacity of oil for most engines, all right? And we were down to here. So I'm gonna put this back in. I'm gonna show you where we are. Tell you roughly what we need, okay? So now that we've got it, look at that. Absolutely perfect, right? You can see that level. It's a nice straight line. The oil is not as clean as it was when it first went in. Why? Because the oil is now mixed. The oil is now mixed with the old oil. So the new oil that was incredibly clean has just been mixed with the old oil that was in there, all right? So it's a little bit darker already. But if we're looking at this dipstick, okay, let me see if I can kind of get it in focus, all right? My oil level is right about here. Yep, okay. So because it's right about here, I'm gonna need maybe less than half a liter of oil to bring it right up to the maximum, and that's where we want it. When we do an oil change, we want it right up to the maximum. And why do we want it right up to the maximum? We could leave it there, a liter short, but why not bring it up to the maximum? And if there is a leak in this car, if I check it and say 500, 600, 1,000 kilometers, and if there's a leak, it's come off the maximum. So I know how much oil has leaked, because in between here and here, it's a good indicator of how much oil I've lost, okay? So let's add some oil. Trusty funnel back in there. All right. So he's giving me 5 liters of oil, and I've only used 3.5. That's probably exactly what we need. And you remember my little trick. I don't want that oil dripping all over the engine, so I just kind of keep my oil bucket right here, and I do this. Boom, done. No dripping all over the engine. Just like I said, if you drip onto the exhaust manifold, what happens is when it gets hot, the oil will burn, and it smells really bad. And then it'll smoke, all right? And now I've got a customer that's coming back home. You just did an oil change on my car, and it's smoking, and it smells really bad. So guess what I've got to do? I've got to wash the engine for free, because that's my fault, right? So let's check this dipstick again. Wow, man, I'm good. Let's take a look. Put this back in. Take a look at my level, okay? Perfect, right at that top line, okay? We are done. Now, one of the things that I have, I can't really show you here, I don't have the proper lighting for it, but we've got this thing right here. And this is my master cylinder reservoir, and that's where the brake fluid is kept. And if I was to pull this off, I'm gonna notice that the brake fluid level in here is low, all right? So he thinks that it's something wrong with his handbrake. Nothing's wrong with his handbrake. What's happened is he's got a brake fluid level leak. He's got a brake fluid leak. That's gonna bring the level down. And when that turns on the light is never going off. So let me show you. I've got to show you guys how to do a 20-point inspection on the vehicle, and that will come later. But one of the things that we can do is we can shine a light in that reservoir. And when we shine a light in the reservoir, it'll show us where the level is. Now, I don't have this camera up that close, so you really can't see it. But written on this reservoir, let's see if you can see it. I'm going to have to pull up some video for this, because written on the reservoir we've got two markers, much like the oil dipstick. We've got a marker down here that says minimum, and then there's another marker up here and it says maximum. So I'm looking for his brake fluid. His brake fluid is all the way down here. When that brake fluid runs out in this master cylinder, that's when this poor person has no more brakes. Without any fluid in the hydraulic system, there's no action, okay? There is no force being created in a hydraulic system without fluid, all right? So he hasn't run completely out of fluid, but he would have. And I'm very happy that he's brought it to me to do an oil change, because in a couple of days, he wouldn't have any brakes, okay? And that represents a really, really bad safety issue, okay? Good. So we're gonna add some fluid to this, and I'm gonna show him exactly what's going on. I'm gonna keep it on the hoist. I'm gonna show him where all the oil leaks are and all that stuff. But I told him to come back at about 11:45 when I'm done with you guys, okay? All right, the last step in our oil change, and I'm gonna bring it. So behind my desk in the classroom, okay? You see the classroom, I guess. So the classroom right now is in darkness, okay? So my classroom's in darkness, but whatever. Behind my desk, I've got a big roll of oil change stickers. I'm gonna go and get them. Okay, I've got a big roll of oil change stickers right here, and we're gonna use, I normally use a sharpener. So in my hand, I've got the oil change roll with the oil change reminder stickers. And what we do in our shop is we don't do what is normally done, which is the sticker will tell you when you need to come back and get your oil change. So sticker, you guys can see it, okay? Sticker just has your next service is due, right? And it'll tell you the date, and it'll tell you whether it's a tire rotation, lube, oil, and filter. Okay, it's not very well focused there, but you can see it there, all right? And you can see that this was from a GM dealer. I got this entire roll about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, from one of my teacher candidates who worked for GM, and he just gave me an entire roll. And we still haven't finished it because we don't do that many oil changes, okay? I'm gonna add today's information. I never tell people when to come back. What I do is I tell the students, find the odometer reading for today. So find the mileage on the car, and you're gonna write it down. So you're gonna write down the mileage right here where it says lube, oil, and filter. Then you're gonna write down today's date. And what I tell customers is, listen, I've written down today's date, so you decide when you wanna change your oil. So someone like David has a reminder that says, this is when the oil was changed. And David just says, oh, I'm like 5,000 kilometers over, because I guess he knew when the last time was that he did an oil change, okay? So for today, this car has 271,000 kilometers. Okay, and today's date is May 13th, 2021, and that's what I'm gonna write on the sticker, okay? So I wrote down today's mileage. It's got a couple hundred kilometers more, but it's 271,000, a couple hundred kilometers more. It's May 13th, and then what do? We stick it in this area. So what we do is we stick it on the inside of the glass, okay? And it's kind of what they call it, like static, okay? So it's like a static stick. There's no adhesive on this. And it just kind of goes up in the top corner up on the driver's side, where most of you have probably seen this before. Your parents have taken their car to Mr. Lube. So we take it off, okay? And then I just stick it right here. So you can see my hand going in. I stick it right here in the corner, all right? I give it a little press. And sometimes it stays there and sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on how dirty the windshield is, okay? So if this was being done at a dealer where they're charging you, I don't know, for an oil change on a car like this, 4 years of oil, take it to Honda, it's probably gonna cost you $59, $60, okay, easy, all right? Maybe even more, I don't know. But $59, $60 is the going rate for an oil change, especially at a dealer. If this was being done at the dealer and I was charging you 160, I was charging you 59 or $69, I'm gonna make sure that I take some brake clean. I'm gonna clean that windshield, make sure there's no residue on the windshield so that sticker doesn't fall down. Because if I've got a customer coming in and paying me $70 to do an oil change, they don't want the sticker falling down. They want that reminder stuck on the windshield until they need the next oil change. And for me, that's critical because you know what? I want that customer coming back to do the oil change because that represents making money for the dealership and making money for me. I think we're done. It's 11:30. You guys throw up in the chat if you want me to show you anything else. So we've just completed a break. What am I saying? We just completed an oil change on the Civic. I took you through all of the necessary steps. This is being recorded. Oh, gosh, there's a big light behind me. Because it's being recorded, you guys can make reference to this anytime because I'm going to post it I'll probably post it today. Once I get the recording, it usually takes about an hour or so. Once I get the recording, I'll post it in our classroom. I'm good. If anybody's got any questions, guys, ask. This is why I'm here. Tomorrow, I guess with David Lamb's car, which is awesome. Thank you, David. The older the car, the older the car, the higher the mileage, the more rotten the car is. Those are the best cars for me. Sorry, my knee's on the ground. Those are the best cars for me to do an inspection on because what that means is the car might have issues and I want to be able to show you guys those issues, all right? I'll put this back up in the air and I'll see if I can just hold the camera and show you the leak on this brake line because when I show it to you, you'll understand because it's dripping down, all right? And I'll show you exactly where it is, all right? So let me just put the car back up in here. We've got what? We've got like 15 minutes. We'll put it back up in the air and I'll show you where the leak is coming from and you'll understand, okay? I think I heard the door open. That might be the caretaker. So you know what? If he's here, I'll also show him too. All right, let me just get the car back up in the air. Get the sucker back up in the air. There's a reason your brake light's on. It has nothing to do with your handbrake. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm glad I'm doing this for you. I'll show you. I'm going to show the class too. I kind of already showed them, but I'm just going to keep my camera. All right, guys. So, as you can see on the floor, we've got a little bit of oil just kind of dripping on the floor. That's from the oil change. So I'm going to give that a wipe. But this is one of the things you do on these cars because there's constantly oil just kind of rolling down where we just changed the oil. Okay, so I'm looking for my rag. I'm not going to care, but it's too small. Okay, so we've got oil on the floor. No big deal. Let's take a look at where this oil leak is. Okay. So if you're looking at the bottom of this car, you can clearly see oil leak here. Okay, you can see that. All right, and then over on this side, you can see. Let me use the pointer because my body's getting in the way and removing the light. Okay, so I'll use my pointer, and I will show you. And then I'm going to try and get in there and show you where the leak is coming from. All right, so we've got oil leak right here, and you can see that oily residue. No oil here, okay? No oil here. You see how it's nice and dry. But if you look right here, it looks wet. That represents either water or oil, okay? Same thing with this side, okay? So we go from dry, and it starts to get wet, okay? So there's an oil leak here, and there's also an oil leak here. And when you're looking at it, you can see oil right here, okay? And then you can see oil right here. It's actually dripping off right here, okay? The problem is brake line. Now for us to get up in there, for me to show you the brake line, I'm gonna have to get another light because our light will not fit. So this big light that I've got here, it's just, let's see. Maybe I can show you. All right, let me see. Let's take a look. If I get in there. Maybe I can. Okay, so guys, you don't know how difficult this is for me here because I'm talking away from the camera and you guys need to hear it. And then I've also got to try and look at this camera to see what you guys are seeing. So up in here is the oil leak, okay? And if you're looking, I'm standing in the way of the light, so let me move this light over. We also need to see this, so I might have to just use a smaller light here. So let's take a look. Oh yeah, okay, so you can see the oil leak, you can see the oily residue right here. So you can see the oil residue right here and it's dry up here. Now let's take a closer look in here, okay? So if we're taking a closer look in here, we can't see it. Not with this light. Let me get an additional light, which is a smaller light that will shine right in there. Okay. And I'll show you where the oil leak is coming from. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to shine a light now. Yeah, let me move this light. So you guys can see where I'm shining the light. Okay. And take a look at that line right there. Okay, so we've got a bunch of wires. Okay, so the wires are like right there. You can see all those multicolored wires. Okay, and right above those wires, okay, there's a line right there. Okay, that line is leaking fluid, and the fluid coming out of that line is brake fluid. Okay, so that represents a really serious safety issue on this car. Okay, and that's the reason why his light was coming on, and that's why it's never going to go off. Okay, so he thought that maybe it was the switch for the handbrake, but it's because the fluid level is low in the master cylinder. So the leak is right there, and you can see it now. I've got two hands, one holding the camera and the other one holding the light. So I can't use my pointer, but you can clearly see it. That black thing that you're seeing on the light is like a plastic protective coating, all right? And they coat the metal line so it doesn't rust. But obviously where it's not coated, the line will rust, okay? And that line is rusted and now it's become what's called porous. It hasn't broken. It's just incredibly rusty, okay? And incredibly rusty means that it's become thinner and thinner and thinner, okay? And that line has now become porous, okay? Let me just take you over here and I'll show you some more incredibly rusty lines, okay? So there's some more incredibly rusty lines right there. And you can see that they're incredibly rusty, but nothing's leaking as yet. They're just badly rusty, okay? Now, guys, this is a 2004, all right? And one of the reasons why this car is so badly rusted is this person doesn't have a garage, so this car is always outside all the time, and that causes a lot of problems. If you guys have got a garage and you've got a car from 2004, you park it in the garage every night, you're usually just totally fine, okay? My car is a 2006. It doesn't even get parked in the garage anymore. It used to, but it's outside, but it's not as heavily rusted as this because it used to be parked inside, okay? So there you go. Any other questions from you guys? It is 11:36. Tomorrow we're gonna do Devin's car. So tomorrow we'll do Devin's car. Not Devin, tomorrow we're gonna do David's car. And I'm gonna teach you guys how to do a full inspection. So for this week, try and get the oil, checking oil level quiz done. Try and get the changing oil quiz done. And the third one is the tire balancer quiz, all right? So take your time on it, guys. I hope I gave you guys some tips to help you guys get 100%, okay? 100% on both of those quizzes, okay? That's what I'm looking at. But some of you got a little bit less than 100, which is okay. But if you guys notice, if you received your mark, because we've only got 6 or 7 questions in some of these quizzes, If you miss one question, it usually represents 10% or more, okay? So try and get 100% on both of those quizzes. I'm gonna take what you guys have already done and I'm gonna record it, okay? So I'd prefer all of you guys to be getting 100% on all of these quizzes, but if you don't spend enough time on the tutorials, sometimes you won't, okay? Have a great afternoon, guys. I'm gonna see you guys first thing in the morning again. David, I'm usually here about 8, 10 after 8. If you want to bring the car then, that's fine. I prefer you leave the car here even earlier, and then I'll set it all up and we'll do the same thing. Set a camera, and I will show you guys how to do a 20-point inspection, okay? So what I'll do on David's car is I'll probably just do the oil change quickly, and then I'll concentrate on doing the 20-point inspection tomorrow, and we'll have to continue that like next week. All right, because it won't be one of those things where I can get it done in 2.5 hours. It takes some time for me to show you all of the ins and outs, because we're going to be checking brakes, we're going to be checking suspension, we're going to be checking steering, we're going to be checking everything underneath the car. We're going to be checking everything under the hood of the car. So we're even going to be pulling a spark plug. Air filters we're going to be checking. We're going to check belts. We're going to check fluid levels. We're going to do all of that stuff. And what I'm going to try and do, I think what I'll do is I will post the 20-point inspection sheet and I'll put it in the content section of our classes so that you guys have something that you can make reference to. Okay? Have a great afternoon, guys. I don't see, yes. So Devin's saying, what about the power steering and the transmission fluid? Well, on this particular car, we don't check the transmission fluid level because it's a manual, because the only time we check it is if it's leaking out, right? And it's not. The only thing leaking on this car is lots of engine oil, and now we've got brake fluid, and no power steering on this car either. So, oh, no, there is power steering on this car, all right? But if the car has power steering, yeah, we can check it. You also have to remember that, guys, on most new cars today, there's no hydraulic power steering. A lot of them have electric, all right? So I can always stump you guys when I'm making you guys do a 20-point inspection on a vehicle, because I can say, well, what about the power steering? Did you check it? And if you don't know how to check the difference between a car that has hydraulic, which needs fluid, or one that has electric, which just uses electricity and a motor, all right, you can't check it. And then I have to show it to you on the car, all right? So, any other questions in the chat? Nope, I don't see any. And I'm not kind of looking at this camera, sorry guys. Kind of looking down here. No, so no more questions. All right, try and get your 3 quizzes done. All right, they're new, they're under maintenance and tires. So try and get those done. Thank you for those of you that have already got it done. I've got probably got about half of both of the classes done. So thank you very much. And I will see you guys in the morning. Have a great afternoon, guys.
Bye, Mr. Solomon.
Bye, I gotta turn this off.
Bye, Mr. Solomon. See you tomorrow.
Okay, David.